You walk into work feeling confident. Your skills are solid, your work ethic is strong, and you genuinely care about what you do. But something's off. People don't seek your opinion anymore. That promotion went to someone else. Colleagues seem distant, and you have no idea why. Here's what nobody tells you. Respect doesn't disappear because of one big mistake. It erodes through small, everyday attitudes that you don't even realize you're displaying. These aren't dramatic failures. They're subtle patterns that quietly signal to everyone around you that maybe you're not someone they should take seriously. Let me walk you through the 8 attitudes that are secretly costing you respect, and more importantly, show you exactly how to fix them. Number 1, playing devil's advocate in every conversation. Now, questioning ideas can be valuable. Critical thinking matters. But there's a specific type of person who turns every discussion into a debate, and it's destroying their reputation without them knowing it. Picture this scenario. Your colleague walks in excited about a new strategy. Before they finish explaining, you're already saying, "But what about this problem? And have you considered what could go wrong?" You think you're being smart. You think you're adding value by pointing out flaws. Here's what most people miss. When you reflexively challenge every idea, people don't see you as intelligent. They see you as draining. You become the person who makes everything harder, who sucks energy out of the room. Eventually, people stop sharing ideas with you altogether because they know you'll just tear them down. Think about this for a second. When was the last time you felt excited to share something with someone who always points out the problems first? You don't. None of us do. The psychological pattern here is fascinating. Often, people who constantly play devil's advocate are trying to prove their intelligence, but the opposite happens. You end up looking like someone who can only criticize, never create. So what's the fix? Save your skepticism for moments that truly matter. Before you critique, find at least one element worth building on. Try saying, "I see potential here, and here's what we'd need to address," instead of leading with objections. The people who earn real respect aren't the ones who can tear down ideas fastest. They're the ones who can identify which battles matter and how to make good ideas even better. Number 2, turning every conversation into a competition. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Someone mentions they went for a run and you immediately jump in with your marathon training. A friend shares a struggle and you're ready with a story about an even bigger challenge you faced. Every story becomes an opportunity to one-up. Let me show you why this is so damaging. I watched this happen with someone named Michael at a recent gathering. A person shared something vulnerable about struggling with anxiety. Michael immediately launched into a detailed account of his own struggles, how he overcame them, and what everyone else should do. He thought he was being helpful and relatable. What actually happened? The entire conversation shut down. Nobody shared anything real for the rest of the evening. Michael didn't realize it, but he just signaled that other people's experiences only matter as launching points for his own stories. Here's the thing. When you consistently one-up people, you're broadcasting a clear message. You're saying their experiences aren't as important as yours. You're treating conversations like performances where you need to be the star. And people notice this. They don't confront you, they just gradually stop being real with you. The psychology underneath this is really interesting. We often one-up others when we're insecure about our own achievements. It's a defense mechanism, but it creates exactly the opposite of what you want. Instead of looking impressive, you look desperate for validation. So what should you do instead? Practice what I call the curiosity principle. When someone shares something, ask genuine questions about their experience before making it about yourself. Not fake questions where you're just waiting for your turn to talk, real curiosity. How did that make you feel? What happened next? What are you thinking about doing? Watch what happens when you do this consistently. People start seeking out your company because you make them feel heard, and that's infinitely more valuable than any accomplishment you could brag about. Number 3, complaining without offering solutions. Every workplace, every friend group, every family has this person. They can spot every problem. The process isn't efficient. The plan won't work. Management doesn't get it. But when someone asks, "Okay, what should we do instead?" they shrug and say, "I don't know, I'm just pointing it out." Here's what's really happening beneath the surface. Chronic complaining without solutions makes you look intellectually lazy. It shows you want credit for being observant without doing the harder work of being constructive. Over time, people start tuning you out completely. Your valid observations get dismissed along with the invalid ones because you've built a reputation as someone who just likes to hear themselves criticize. I learned this lesson early in my career. I was pointing out problems with the project timeline, feeling smart about my analytical skills. My boss pulled me aside and said something I never forgot. Anyone can see what's broken. Professionals figure out how to fix things. That statement changed everything for me because she was right. Identifying problems is the easy part. A 5-year-old can tell you dinner tastes bad. An adult can tell you why and suggest how to improve it. The respect shift is dramatic when you change this pattern. When you bring up a problem, bring at least one potential solution, even if it's imperfect. Say, I noticed this isn't working and I've been thinking we could try this approach. What do you think? Suddenly, you're not just an observer, you're a contributor. So here's your action step. Implement a personal rule. For every complaint you voice, offer one possible solution or volunteer to help figure it out. If you can't do either, question whether the complaint is worth making. This single shift will transform how people respond to your input. Number 5, apologizing for everything. Wait, isn't apologizing good? Doesn't it show humility? Sure, when it's genuine, but there's a pattern that absolutely destroys respect, and most people doing it don't realize the damage they're causing. You've seen this. Someone sends an email starting with, sorry to bother you, but they walk into a room saying, sorry I'm late, when they're actually on time. They present ideas with, this might be stupid, but they apologize for things that aren't their fault, for taking up space, for existing. Let that sink in for a moment. Every unnecessary apology is a deposit in the don't take me seriously account. You think you're being polite. What you're actually doing is training people to see you as uncertain and lacking confidence. I watched this with a colleague named Jennifer. Brilliant analyst, great insights, but every presentation started with, sorry, this probably isn't what you expected. After months of this, clients started requesting other team members for presentations, not because Jennifer's work wasn't excellent, because her own language told them not to trust it. Here's the core truth. Respect is partially about how others perceive your own respect. When you constantly apologize for your presence, your ideas, your needs, people unconsciously lower their estimation of your value. They literally cannot respect you more than you appear to respect yourself. So what's the fix? Audit your language for 1 week. Notice every time you say sorry and ask yourself if something wrong actually occurred. Then replace unnecessary apologies with gratitude or directness. Sorry for the long email becomes thanks for reading this. Sorry to ask, but becomes I'd appreciate your thoughts on something. Watch what happens when you stop apologizing for existing. It's remarkable. Number 5, gossiping and talking behind people's backs. This seems obvious, right? Everyone knows gossiping is bad, yet it's everywhere because people think they're building connection through shared secrets. They're not, they're destroying trust. Think about the mechanics. When someone gossips to you about another person, what goes through your mind? You wonder what they say about you when you're not around. You might feel like you're bonding in the moment, but what you're actually learning is that this person can't be trusted. Here's the nuance. There's a difference between processing challenges with a trusted friend and habitually talking negatively about people. The first is healthy, the second is toxic. I saw this destroy someone's career trajectory. Rachel was talented, but she had a habit of sharing unflattering stories about colleagues. She thought it made her seem insightful. What actually happened was that over time, she went from being included in important discussions to being excluded from sensitive projects. Nobody confronted her, they just quietly recognized she couldn't be trusted. The psychology is straightforward. People respect those who demonstrate integrity when no one's watching. When you consistently speak well of people in their absence, or at minimum refuse to participate in negative talk, you build a reputation for character. That reputation becomes currency that pays dividends for years to come. Your move? Make a commitment. If you wouldn't say it to someone's face, don't say it behind their back. If you need to process frustration, do it with a mentor or therapist, not with colleagues.
When someone tries to pull you into gossip, say, "I'd rather not discuss them when they're not here." You'll be surprised how much this elevates people's perception of you.
Number 6, never admitting when you don't know something. Someone asks a question. Instead of saying, I don't know, you launch into a vague answer that sounds smart but means nothing. You fake understanding. You nod along when you're lost. You think you're protecting your image. You're demolishing it. Here's what's fascinating. The most respected people in any room are usually quickest to say, I don't know, but I'll find out. Or, can you explain that differently? They figured out that admitting ignorance selectively is a power move, not a weakness. Let me explain why. When you pretend to know things you don't, two things happen. First, people who actually know immediately recognize you're bluffing and they downgrade their entire assessment of you. Second, you can't learn what you pretend to already know, so you stay stuck. I learned this from watching a senior executive in a meeting. Someone used a technical term he wasn't familiar with. He immediately stopped the conversation and said, Hold on, I want to make sure I understand. Can someone explain that? No embarrassment, no hedging, just curiosity. His credibility went up, not down. The fix? Practice distinguishing between areas where you should know things and where it's reasonable not to. In your expertise area, do the work to be knowledgeable. In other areas, get comfortable saying, that's outside my knowledge, or I'd be speculating, so let me look into it first. The confidence to admit what you don't know is actually a marker of genuine expertise. Number 7, being unreliable with small commitments. You say you'll send a document by end of day. You don't. You promise to make a meeting. You cancel last minute. You commit to following up. You forget. These seem minor. They are not. Here's the brutal truth. People are constantly calculating whether you're worth their investment. Every broken small commitment is data that you can't be counted on for bigger things. Every time you're late without warning, every time you forget what you promised, you're making a withdrawal from your credibility account. Think about someone in your life who's always 15 minutes late. How do you feel about them? Probably fond, maybe frustrated, but definitely not like you'd trust them with something critical. That's the hidden cost. They might be talented and likable, but when it's time for important responsibilities, they're not considered. I watched this keep someone stuck at the same level for years. Creative, hardworking when engaged, generally liked, but he'd say yes to things and deliver late or forget entirely. He couldn't understand why others were getting promoted. The answer was simple. Nobody trusted him with anything that truly mattered. Your action step? Treat small commitments with the same seriousness as large ones. If you say you'll do something, do it, or proactively communicate why you can't. Build a reputation as someone whose word means something. This alone can transform your trajectory because reliability is increasingly rare. Number 8, taking credit for collaborative work. This is the most relationship-damaging pattern because it strikes directly at trust and fairness. When you position yourself as the primary driver of a team's success or fail to acknowledge others' contributions, you're breaking something fundamental. Here's what happens. The people who contributed notice immediately. They don't call it out because that feels petty, but they remember, and they adjust. They stop sharing their best ideas with you. They stop going the extra mile. They distance themselves, and others observe this and draw conclusions about your character. The fascinating part? Giving credit generously has the opposite effect. When you actively highlight others' contributions, when you use we more than I, people trust you more. They want to work with you. They advocate for you behind closed doors. The respect you think you're losing by sharing credit actually multiplies. I watched two managers with different approaches. Manager A would say, we achieved this, and specifically name who did what. Manager B would say, I implemented this, even for team efforts. Guess which one had people competing to join their team and which had constant turnover? The fix? Overcorrect on giving credit. When someone compliments your work, immediately bring in others who contributed. In emails and presentations, be explicit. Use names, give examples. This habit doesn't diminish your standing, it amplifies it because people recognize you as someone who builds others up. Here's what connects all 8 attitudes. Respect isn't something you demand based on your title or talent. It's something people give based on consistent patterns they observe in how you show up. The good news?
Every single pattern is fixable starting today. Pick one that resonated most, work on it for the next 30 days. Notice what shifts and how people respond to you. Because respect isn't mysterious once you understand these hidden patterns. It's the natural result of showing up as someone who adds value, demonstrates integrity, and treats others with genuine regard. And that's completely within your control.